Welcome back, everyone. Today we're doing things a bit differently. We're diving into the Enneagram, but through the lens of someone pretty fascinating, Richard Gere.
Oh, I like this. Using a real person, like Richard Gere, can make the Enneagram so much more relatable. We'll be focusing on type 3, the achiever, and even more specifically, the sexual subtype.
So just a quick recap. The Enneagram is a system of personality types, 9 interconnected types. Each type has unique motivations, fears, ways they act.
Exactly. Type 3s, or the achievers, they're ambitious, driven to succeed, love recognition. They're adaptable, charming, great at presenting themselves.
And Richard Gere's career, it really shows that classic Type 3 ambition. Decades of films, iconic roles. He's achieved so much.
For sure. Think of his famous roles: American Gigolo, Pretty Woman. Often he's playing characters who are confident, charismatic, always striving for the best.
Like those roles were made for a Type 3. But it's not just acting. What's interesting is how Gere's humanitarian work, his political activism, also fit the Type 3.
You're right. It's not always just about career success for type 3s. It goes deeper. They want to impact the world, influence others, and yeah, be recognized for it.
And that brings us to the sexual subtype. Now, the word sexual can be a little misleading.
Absolutely. In the Enneagram, the sexual subtype is more about intense energy magnetism, a deep desire to connect, almost a need to captivate and merge with others.
Okay, that makes more sense. And honestly, you can feel that energy when you see Richard Gere on screen. The man's been a sex symbol forever.
He has. But here's a twist. The sexual subtype is considered the most withdrawn, the most reserved of all the type 3 subtypes.
Wait, really? That seems contradictory? So much magnetic energy, yet reserved.
It does, right? But think about it. Richard Gere, with all his fame, he's known for being private, very selective with media, keeps his personal life out of the spotlight.
So they want connection, but they're careful about who they let in.
Precisely. That need for autonomy, for protection from constant attention, that's key for the sexual subtype. They choose when and how they share that intense energy.
So, if Richard Gere is a Type 3 with this sexual subtype, does that explain why he sometimes seems, well, shy?
It could, definitely. The
Yeah.
sexual subtype is considered the shyest of the type 3s. Another interesting contradiction, isn't it?
Shy. Richard Gere. I never would have thought, though. But, thinking about it, he does prefer a low-key life, avoids that crazy media attention.
Exactly. And if you look at his marriages, it seems he truly values stability, intimacy, over being in the spotlight, constantly seeking attention.
Okay, so we've got Richard Gere, successful, charismatic Type 3, with a sexual subtype that makes him both magnetic and reserved. But there's another layer to this. The expert we're looking at, Antonio Fernandez Guerrero, he says sexual Type 3s are passionate about pleasing others. Not just through looks, though.
That's an important point. It's more than wanting to be attractive. It's about kindness, gentleness. It's almost enchanting people with their whole being, not just their appearance.
Exactly. And I think that's where Gere's activism comes in. His dedication to the Tibetan people. It's been unwavering for years.
It has, and it's a perfect example of how a sexual type 3's desire to please can be healthy. It's not superficial charm. It's channeling energy into genuine service, fighting for a cause they believe in.
He's not just putting his name on something. He's using his fame, his platform, to raise awareness, inspire empathy. He puts his persuasive skills towards something meaningful.
It's like he's using that captivating energy to captivate people with a cause, the plight of the Tibetan people. It's powerful seeing how those desires can be positive.
Okay, so we've covered a lot. But there's one more part of Richard Gere's life I want to explore through this Enneagram lens, his film roles.
I like it. Examining some of his famous characters could give us even deeper insight into the type 3, especially the sexual subtype.
Exactly. So let's get into it.
Okay, so Richard Gere's movies, let's see. Those type 3 sexual subtype traits in action. Where should we begin?
We got to start with American Gigolo, Julian Kay, his character. It's like the textbook definition of everything we've been talking about.
Right. Stylish, seductive, obsessed with how he looks. His whole life is about being seen as successful, desirable.
And he uses that image to climb the social ladder. Ambition, charisma, those are his tools. But there's also that vulnerability, a little loneliness, and that's part of what makes him attractive.
Absolutely. That complexity, that's what makes him interesting. He wants admiration, validation from others, but deep down, he wants a real connection too.
It's like he's stuck, always looking for approval, but never finding that genuine connection he wants. Which, hey, that leads us to Pretty Woman, another classic Gere role, totally Type 3 energy.
Definitely. Edward Lewis, the businessman who falls for Vivian, played by Julia Roberts.
Yeah.
He's this controlled workaholic at first, but then we see a different side.
I love that change. He starts so buttoned up, image focused, then he lets go, find something real.
And that change, that's the sexual type 3 growing. He learns that real connection matters more than just surface stuff. His vulnerability is what makes him attractive, not just his money or status.
Okay, but for a totally different kind of sexual type 3, we got to talk about Billy Flynn in Chicago.
Ooh.
The slick lawyer, loves attention, no problem with using people to get what he wants.
Oh, yeah. Billy is charming, charismatic, but also so manipulative.
Mhm.
He uses his charm to win, to sway the public, to basically play everyone.
He's playing a game, and winning is everything.
Yeah.
Which, when you think about it, that's that competitive drive we see in type 3s, especially the sexual subtype.
Exactly. And for Billy, it's not just winning, it's the showmanship. He
Mhm.
has to be captivating, hold everyone's attention, be the center of it all.
That constant need for validation, to be admired. Which, speaking of captivating performances, we can't forget Zach Mayo in An Officer and a Gentleman, another sheer role, driven and ambitious, but also longing for love and acceptance.
It's that sexual type 3 duality again. On the surface, Zach is tough, determined, goal-oriented, but underneath, he's searching for connection, for something more. The whole movie is about him finding balance between his ambition and his vulnerability.
And that ending, when he shows up in his uniform to get Paula. Talk about captivating. All that ambition, all that vulnerability, it becomes this big romantic gesture. Pure sexual type 3.
It is, and Richard Gere, the way he plays these characters, so many of them throughout his career, he gets the sexual type 3 so well. It's not just ambition or charm. It's this mix of things, the drive for success, daddling with the need for connection.
Like they're always going back and forth, trying to find that spot where they can be admired and loved for who they really are.
Exactly. And I think that's why they're so interesting to watch on screen in real life.
Yeah.
So thinking about these Richard Gere movies, what stands out to you about these characters, especially through this sexual type 3 lens?
They're not just simple characters. They're complex, driven, but also vulnerable, capable of genuine connection.
Yeah.
That complexity, I think that's what makes them relatable. We might not have those same huge ambitions, but we all want to be seen, to be loved for who we are.
You're right. It reminds us that even people who seem to have it all, fame, success, charisma, they're still human. They still have those same needs to connect, to feel validated.
Absolutely. So understanding these different personality types, like the Enneagram type 3 and its subtypes, it helps us understand each other better.
I agree. We've looked at Richard Gere's career, his activism, even broken down his famous movie roles. It's been a deep dive into the Enneagram type 3 and the sexual subtype.
It has. But the question I keep thinking about is, how do we use this knowledge in our own lives?
That's a great question to be asking.
We've learned so much about type 3s, the sexual subtype, all through Richard Gere. But what does it mean for the rest of us? People who aren't, Hollywood stars.
That's the point, right? It's not about celebrity gossip. It's about taking this knowledge, this understanding, and using it in our own lives, understanding the people around us.
So how do we actually do that? Take this Enneagram stuff and make it meaningful.
Well, first, it's about seeing these patterns in ourselves, in others. Maybe you see some type 3 in you that drive, wanting recognition, that need to project a certain image. Or maybe you see it in someone you know, a friend, family, coworker.
Right. It's not about labeling people. It's about understanding why they do what they do. Why are they so driven? What are they after? What scares them?
Exactly. It's getting deeper into human nature, what makes us tick. And that can make us more empathetic, more compassionate. It can make our relationships stronger.
Like a new way of seeing things.
Yeah.
Once you see these patterns, you can't unsee them.
It's true. And it can really help you figure out situations. Like if you're working with someone and you realize they're a type 3, you might approach things differently, knowing that recognition, achievement, those are big motivators for them.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
So it's not just knowing ourselves, it's using that knowledge to get along better with everyone.
Yeah. And remember, it's not about judging. Every Enneagram type has its strengths and weaknesses. It's about getting it, appreciating all the different personalities out there.
Okay, so we've gone deep into the Enneagram, type 3, the sexual subtype, all through Richard Gere. It's been fascinating.
It has, but it's just the beginning. There's so much more to learn about the Enneagram, and the more we learn, the more we understand ourselves, understand each other.
I totally agree. So to everyone listening, keep exploring, keep learning, keep connecting. You might surprise yourself with what you discover. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.